she didn't break any rules. While Secretary Clinton may call it a, quote, nothing burger, last year an independent watchdog group found that 22 emails deemed highly classified to release in any form. Joining us right now is former CIA Director, former General Counsel to Senate Armed Services Committee, James Woolsey. And good to see you, Mr. Director. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good to be with you.
What's your take on Hillary Clinton yesterday?
Well, I just disagree with her rather fundamentally. I think
it wasn't a nothing burger.
It was not a nothing burger. The emails were not dealt with carefully, not dealt with securely at all. And if it's an indicator of how she would have handled highly classified material as President of the United States when she has the authority to name anything for being classified that she wants. I don't know what we would have been facing, but it certainly would not have been a well-disciplined and structured handling of highly sensitive material. And this stuff is not classified just randomly. It's classified because it's given to us by a close intelligence service that wants it, foreign intelligence service that are friends of ours that want it held very closely, and then it leaks out of the United States. That really damages our ability to get intelligence from our friends and allies.
Yeah, I wonder, go ahead, Steve.
No, I was just going to say, why did she do that server business in the first place, other than to cover up stuff that she didn't want others to see?
That was the reason.
Yeah.
It was just... it was a mess, and I think the pay-to-play was also, and is more understandable to the average Joe that, you know, it's pretty straightforward. It's cash for a speech. And
so Bill Clinton getting $750,000 to give a 5-minute speech in Moscow is not pay-to-play?
Right.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, they had so many more links to Russia, the Clintons did, than Trump. And it's incredible to me how this Russia story doesn't go away, and it's dominated in the news when, in fact, Hillary Clinton sold, what, 25% of the U.S.'s stockpile of uranium to a Russian company, then the money for the speeches, and yet...
Or at least if the investigation is going to go forward, why is it so hyper-focused on Trump? Why doesn't it include everything in the election? That's the other question I have.
Will Bob Mueller do that?
Exactly. Well, yeah. And she also said that she was warning everybody about Russia in the summer. That seems to me like an indictment on Obama, because let's face it, the meddling in the election happened under Obama's watch.
Well, the Russians are never not meddling in other people's elections.
For years.
For decades.
Right.
And they're all over Europe all the time. And they call it disinformation, disinformatia, and one has to deal with them. What's new is the cyber side. What's new is that it's a lot easier and quicker and faster to meddle in somebody's election than it used to be. And
but is that Obama? Because it happened under Obama's watch. Is that an indication that Obama was
everybody's watch?
Asleep at the wheel? Well, if it was worse this time.
Well, whatever the Russians were doing, take it up to the 4th or 5th power, and for this year, because what they've done in the past has been important and powerful and troubling, but what they were doing this year was really, I think, quite extraordinary.
What do you think of the subpoena for Samantha Powers, a former UN ambassador?
I don't know. The UN ambassadorship is normally not a place where one thinks of highly classified material getting withheld. I don't know what she did that would have led to this. She's an able public servant. I don't know.
Let me ask you about that, because there are new developments in the investigation into the improper unmasking of President Trump's campaign associates. Now, yesterday, the House Intelligence Committee issued 7 subpoenas. They included 4 on the Russia election meddling probe. Fox News confirmed that there are 3 others for the Obama administration officials: former White House National Security Advisor Susan Rice, former CIA Director John Brennan, and former UN Ambassador Samantha Power. So what do you think this means in terms of the unmasking investigation?
I can't tell. Unmasking is essentially letting it out who you have intercepted communications from, even if that was an accident. For example, the CIA or NSA can't basically randomly go out and just spy on Americans. But sometimes if you're spying on a Russian diplomat, you'll pick up a conversation with an American. And then in the documents that are put together, the name of the American is masked, is blacked out in some fashion. But then if you go further and you unmask and you show that to people who don't have clearances, or don't have a need to know, you've, for whatever reason, political or whatever, you've done a very bad and dangerous thing from the point of view of classified information in the country.
As a diplomat, what business does she have requesting the unmasking of these individuals? How often, did it happen? Who were the Trump officials? What was the justification of it?
Those are all great questions. I don't know. I've had a hard time figuring out what that role of hers could have been that created this situation.
But isn't it extraordinary that we know that the unmasking is illegal, right?
As far as I can tell, yes.
Okay, so we know that there was criminality done in that situation, and yet you don't hear anything about this. All you hear about is we're waiting and waiting and waiting for evidence of collusion between Trump and the Russians. And yet we've got the potential illegal criminality right in front of us that we know was done, and nobody reports it.
It has not been covered. That's right. Best I can tell.
That's just extraordinary. Now, James, there's a story in the Wall Street Journal this morning that Flynn actually offered you a job.
Yes, the CIA job. But there are two problems. One is that I had no communication from the president, newly elected president. It came all through Flynn. Second, and so I was not absolutely sure that it was a real offer from the White House. I would have thought, would have at least gotten a call from somebody.
The president.
Yeah, I would have thought. The other was that I had not had a good experience with Flynn back in September on something that he was doing with respect to Turkey, and I didn't really want to report through him, and he made it clear that if I accepted the job, I would report through him to the president, and I didn't want to work for him. So for those reasons, I turned it down.
Wow, smart. James, great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Sure, good to
James Woolsey joining us, former CIA director.